I kind of like to say the music business is like, it's kind of like buying lottery tickets. You 1 week, I didn't win this million, and the next week, I didn't win this million. But, if you don't buy the tickets, you're never going to win at all, right? Or even have a chance to. So, yeah, having relationships with people in the music industry and just being a nice person, it'll get you a long way.
Yeah.
And also being good at your job. Obviously, that's a part of it, but it's not 100% of the part of it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to work with others. That's the thing. And unfortunately, in the music industry, egos are everywhere. If you can learn to keep your ego in check when necessary, like it's important. Ego helps you with confidence in what you do, but you got to keep it in check too. You need to know when to, show your thing, but then you also need to know when to be humble and listen and take direction. But yeah, again, relationships. When you work with people, producers, other musicians, you need to make it easy for them, and in turn, you will get work again. You will get hired again because they know your work ethic. They know how quickly or how easily things will come together because they've done it before with you, and they know what you're capable of, and also they know what you're not capable of. So.
Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I'm Sarah Ramsay, and this show aims to pull back the curtain on the entertainment industry, where veterans give up-and-coming artists some of the information they wish they'd had when they were just starting out. Sort of a music industry primer, if you will. Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I am thrilled today to have with me Nik Pesut, who is a Vancouver-born drummer with a lifelong dedication to his craft. And he's been the rhythmic backbone of Carly Rae Jepsen's live performances since 2010, bringing unparalleled energy to stages worldwide. Nik's touring resume is impressive, featuring collaborations with artists like Holly Mc Narland, Webb, The Birthday Massacre, Jackalope, Jessica Lee, Econoline Crush, and Hearst. And his studio work includes recordings with Jordan Sparks, Josh Ramsay, Candle, Louise Burns, The Dermots, and it highlights his adaptability and expertise in a range of musical styles. Currently, Nik is focused on offering custom multi-track drum production online, providing personalized drum tracks tailored to each song. Additionally, he shares his extensive experience through drum lessons available to aspiring drummers. For more info or to get in touch, you can reach out to him on Instagram at Nik Pesut. Thanks for joining me today, Nik.
Oh, thanks for having.
So I've known you, I mean, kind of at arm's length, but I've known you probably since about 2010.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. It's been a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who are perhaps meeting you for the first time today, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey in the biz, how you got where you are today?
Where do I start? I don't know. Just always, I've been playing drums since I can't even remember, like really young age. And yeah, just kind of kept pursuing it. It's kind of like a thing that you have to do every day. It's just like, oh, I got to figure this out and figure that out. So just started playing drums a lot, and getting into your early teens, started playing in bands and around town, and just jumping from one band to another, see where things go, and trying to, get your resume up, I guess, or whatever, or just skills in general, see how other musicians do their stuff, right? So you learn from every experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Good and bad. But what you take from it is what I've been doing. Always trying to learn what's the better way to do things, kind of thing. What's the smarter way? What's the more professional way to do things? So I kind of kept that going over the years, trying to figure out, how do you do this? There's no instruction book, there's no classes you can take at SFU or anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like throw yourself to the wolves and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But I've been pretty lucky, not without sacrifice, I guess, but, meeting the right people and like-minded people, and kind of share the same interests, and then kind of progress from there. And that's kind of been my philosophy throughout the years.
Yeah.
Just kind of keep moving forward,
Yeah. So here on the Vocal Lab, we aim to sort of shine a light into the industry through the lens of what I know now that I wish I'd known then.
Right.
So with that in mind, if you were starting your career all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Is there anything I would do differently? I don't know. Like, how do you know? In hindsight, you can do a lot of things differently, I guess, but I don't know. I think everything that I've done to this point has led me to this point,
Yep.
So I don't know if much change or anything different would be an accurate way to kind of describe how would you do things. I don't know. What would I do differently? Yeah, I don't know. What would I do differently? I'd kind of just keep doing the same thing. It's like learning. That's what I do is trying to learn from every experience.
Yeah.
From every person I meet, every person I work with, you learn something. You pick something up from them, good or bad. Again.
Yeah.
So you can also learn what not to do in the future. With there's been instances where I'd be playing with a group of people, and sometimes their focus kind of goes astray, and then and then it kind of leaves you in the dust. It's like, okay, well, what do I have to do to make this better for myself? So you have to kind of pivot from there. Not everybody shares the same thought process, right?
Yeah.
And being in a band, for instance, is a difficult thing because it's a marriage between more than one person. It's a polyamorous marriage with everybody thinks they're right at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to find a lot of like-minded people to kind of share the same focus that you have, the same drive that you have to kind of continue your career. So being young when I started, like I said, I had no idea. I just wanted to play drums. It's just something I love to do. Doesn't matter who with, or I can always find something cool to play with whoever, right? But that's just my passion. I just really enjoy the physicality of it, the mental zone you can get into when you're in a rhythmic kind of zone. That's kind of what keeps me playing all the time. It's that fascination. It's like, where can I go from here? Where can I do from this point? But I don't know.
Yeah. So you may have already just answered this question, but usually I follow that question up with, if you were starting all over again, is there anything that you would specifically do the same?
What would I do the same? Yeah, just constant practice, constant learning. That's, if you don't learn from any experience, you're not moving forward. You're digressing, really, because you're wasting time and not figuring stuff out in real time. There's a lot of barriers, again, like I said, there's people always have different ideas on how things should be done. Me being a drummer, it's like the last person you want to ask, hey, the drummer's got an idea, right? That's the joke. But I try to learn from all the artists that I work with. And that's what I would do the same, is keep an open mind, how everyone works. There's always differences. So you need to adapt, really, to be a professional.
Yeah.
People respond to that professionalism and likability, I guess. If you're not professional and you're kind of an ass, no one's going to want to work with you, right? So that's kind of a thing that you kind of should continue to do.
Yeah.
As a musician, just be open and be a nice person, really. And be honest and try to learn.
And I think that concept of constantly learning, constantly trying to better yourself, I think musicians see it on the inside. I think that people who are on the outside looking in at the music industry often look at musicians as differently than it looks on the inside, right? Like it's a
smoke and
cool
mirrors,
rock and roll life, and smoke and mirrors, exactly. And don't understand that it is actually every bit as much, if not more, than lots of other careers where you are constantly looking at how you can do better, how you can be better, and it's not, to some degree, it can be about measuring yourself against the next guy in terms of there's lots of people who all do the same thing in competition for gigs. Although I think interpersonally, we tend to do a pretty good job of not being super competitive with one another. But it's a lot about doing better than yourself, like it's the game of internal golf.
Yeah, it's a constant building process.
Yeah.
Like you said, like any other job, it's the difference between other jobs, I guess, than being in the music industry is there's no you're out there by yourself, really.
Yeah.
You are alone, regardless if you're in a band or not or whatever. You are by yourself. You need to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to help you because they're trying to figure out for themselves as well.
Yeah.
So it is a lonely battle, I guess.
Yeah.
But perseverance, and just the willing to better yourself and better your art is what keeps me going. You know, just trying to constantly improve and see what the next thing brings.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. Like it's a lonely battle, and it's a really good reason that we tend to gravitate to being in community with other musicians who are, even if we are not in the creation process with them, if we're not creating music with them, everybody's having those similar experiences. So there is that sense of like,
there is a community,
shared experience that counts for a lot when you're striving for something that is a lonely endeavor.
Yeah. That's one cool thing about it. Musicians tend to, be friendly with other musicians because they have that commonality of, everyone's trying to make it in this music industry, whichever way they kind of, some are artists, some are just, musicians that play with artists like myself. It's a struggle because, again, you're trying to find what's going to make you better. Mm-hmm. But hanging out with like-minded people again and seeing and hearing their stories and how they work, it will ultimately help you on your journey if you can, get your head out of your ass and not think that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread all the time, and just be open to suggestions and different ideas, because sometimes you don't think of things that other people might have thought of beforehand, and you're kind of like, oh, that's an interesting point, and then you work that into your thing. Again, it's constant learning. If you're not willing to learn, you got to do something else.
Yeah,
you might as well get a job that's repetitive every day, and then you can be in that mindset if that's what makes you tick. It's not easy to be in the music industry or arts in general, because again, it's you struggling. It's you trying to create and making your art or your creativity be seen or be shown or heard, and that's not the typical path of most people. Most people are even afraid to even look at that idea of a lifestyle, because oh, that seems so unpredictable. Well, it is. It's every day is unpredictable. You hustle your way through it, just like life, I guess. But it's a lot simpler to find a job that you're comfortable with, that you can do, and you make a living, and you do the things, you get married, you have children, there's stability. It's all makes it seems like it's easier. But then for me, that seems more like prison to me, so to speak. It's not like prison, obviously, but it's a place where you can't let yourself be yourself 100%.
Yep.
Because you're doing a job for somebody else at their request and the way they want to do it. So
they want to be the boss of you.
And they want to be the boss of you. Yeah. Mind you, what I do have a boss. Carly is my boss, but it's a different atmosphere. Like we collaborate musically together. Yeah. So I try to make her songs sound as best as possible when she performs. So she doesn't have to worry about it. So she can perform, and the band does their job, and everything runs smoothly, like riding a bike. And that's what gets me off, is like doing a really good job, being prepared, and just no worries, no problems, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you have referenced the learning process, sort of the never-ending learning process, quite a bit. Can you step that back and talk a bit about what your musical education was or wasn't? We're in an industry that there's a big range of education. Some is very formal, some is entirely self-taught, some is sort of a mentorship model. And we're in an industry that there is no one right path, so everybody's looks different. What did yours look like, and how has it impacted your career?
Well, when I was a kid, I started taking drum lessons. My parents saw that I had an interest, strong interest. So I started taking lessons really young, and did that for, I don't even know how many years. And then you get to a point where, time starts to be a little more scarce. And then you start playing in bands, and then you start learning from that, right?
Yeah.
So, but always a constant learning my craft. Like I would take, music that I love, and I would play along to it, learn how it's done, and then add my spin to it, because you got to be original. No one wants to just have another copy of somebody else, right? Yeah. So yeah, I did lessons for a long time, and then started developing my own kind of progress and how I maintain my skills and learn. But again, it's meeting with other people and learning what they do is what really helps the progress. Because you can be by yourself in your own head forever, but you'll never get any farther than your own head unless you have it open to other people's ideas or suggestions or how they work. And that's being observant and just being around the right people. Like it's very important. If you're in the music industry, you need to be around people in the music industry. Yeah. Just to be seen, just to be heard, and just to learn again. That's what it for me is, just learning and being friends with people. Like, I'm friends with your brother. I've been friends with him for years, and we've worked together on a few projects here and there, and help out with his band. And but that's it. It's a community, and you're trying to, everyone's trying to get out there and present their art, really. Yeah. And it's helpful when there's other people around that also give you support, and makes it a little bit easier to kind of keep going.
Yeah, it does. And I also find that, like, what ultimately ends up happening as part of that community too, everybody comes together to support each other and find that community. But what inevitably happens is a gig is going to come up, or somebody's going to say, hey, do you know somebody who can do X, Y, or Z? Or do you know a good guitar player, drummer, keyboard player, whatever? And when you hang out with other good musicians, you end up kind of like offering up people for work here and there too. Yep. So not only is it like a creatively fulfilling community and support system and like friendship wise, but you also end up kind of helping each other out with work. And when I can recommend somebody that I know and love and have every confidence in as a musician for work, that's my favorite thing. I love giving work to people that I know are great. Yeah,
that makes you look good because you're giving a good recommendation to other fellow musicians or artists. It happens. I did a tour one time with a band called the Birthday Massacre. Yeah. That was just really impromptu. I literally had 2 days to learn almost 24 songs. So there were some long evenings in my rehearsal space.
I guess so.
But I wanted to do it. I felt it was a challenge to get a call on a Thursday and be ready for a gig for Saturday, and then continue the tour from there. It was a challenge, and I thought I could do it. And I went and I rehearsed like crazy just to be prepared, because ultimately I don't want to look like a fool on stage, especially being a drummer, there's the stories of, if your drummer sucks, then your whole band's going to suck during your performance. I don't want to be that guy, especially if you're being hired to, to help out another artist to perform their music. So I rehearsed a long hours into the evening, and then a couple of days later, we had a first show in Vancouver, which was convenient. They were coming through, and they were kind of nervous on doing sound check, like how's this going to work? I was recommended by a mutual friend of ours, and so they had that. They had that going for them, but they still didn't know, like, how's this guy going to learn, know all our music in 2 days? Yeah. But first song, sound check, they're like, do you know any of the songs? I'm like, yeah, I kind of went through them, And then I'm like, yeah, whatever you want. And then, we started going through the set, and then played the first song, and they were elated, like, oh my goodness, like, this is going to work out fine. And because, they were worried too, because, they were preparing for a tour, and then, things happened, and then they were throwing a wrench where their drummer couldn't do the shows. And then, you have to find some other guy to kind of fill in, because you've already booked the tour.
And that's the worst feeling when you're scrambling to fill in something that, like, you've got to show up and play the gig, and you don't have all the puzzle pieces in place anymore.
Terrifying. Yeah, it's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. So I can relate to that. But so what I wanted to do for that band is make them so at ease that they can just forget about all the stuff that's happened prior, and let's just concentrate on playing the shows and having fun and having a good tour. And ultimately it turned out great. We had a great tour and a lot of sold out shows, and everybody was like, oh my God, you just learned all these songs? I'm like, well, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So that was kind of like a highlight moment in my life, to be, be prepared for a gig that just thrown your way. Like it was nothing that you were rehearsing for months and months in and out, and it was just thrown your way, and then go do it. Here you go.
Well, and that's a testament to your skill level and the confidence that people have in you, because, as you say, you were recommended by a mutual friend. So that person had the confidence that you would be able to rise to that level in that time period.
Again, right? It's trying to please everybody. I wanted to please the band. I wanted to make sure my friend didn't look like an idiot for recommending me. A lot of pressure on my end too, but that's what drives you. That's like, I can do this. Yeah. Sure, no problem. Keep that positive mindset and work hard, and things will happen.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about relationships? Because I asked this question to a lot of guests that come on, and it's less about naming names, although you can answer it however you want to. But music is a career that I think, much more so than a lot of people realize, is built on relationships. Yeah. And you've spoken to that some already. But do you want to talk about what you feel some of the most important relationships have been for you along the way that have gotten you where you are here?
Again, like it's being friendly and meeting the right people. Like I kind of like to say the music business is like, it's kind of like buying lottery tickets all the time. And then, you 1 week, I didn't win this million. And the next week, I didn't win this million. But, if you don't buy the tickets, you're never going to win at all, right? Or even have a chance to. So, having relationships with people in the music industry and just being a nice person, it'll get you a long way. Yeah. And also being good at your job. Obviously, that's a part of it, but it's not 100% of the part of it. Yeah. You need to be able to work with others. That's the thing. And unfortunately, in the music industry, egos are everywhere. So if you can learn to keep your ego in check when necessary, like it's important. Ego helps you with confidence in what
Yeah.
you do, but you got to keep it in check too. You need to know when to, show your thing, but then you also need to know when to be humble and listen and take direction but yeah, again, relationships. When you work with people, producers, other musicians, you need to make it easy for them so they feel like they're doing their job, but you don't want to make their job harder. You want to make their job as easy as possible. So when they finish their project, they can use their ego and say, yeah, I got this done in a week or so, hired some great guys or whatever. And that makes their job easier. And then in turn, you will get work again. You will get hired again because they know your work ethic. They know how quickly or how easily things will come together because they've done it before with you, and they know what you're capable of, and also they know what you're not capable of. So, keeping those relationships with producers and other musicians is key, because no one's gonna, if you don't know anybody, no one's gonna hire you, right? Because they don't know who you are, and vice versa. Again, it's like lottery tickets. It's you be friendly, you show up to the gigs and be in the community, and just be a good person, and usually things will start coming your way if you show the interest. And you got to also tell people that this is what you want to do, and you can't just let people think of things. And you have to be assertive in that way, and put yourself out there in a sense, and eventually things will start to make more sense for you as a musician when you get more gigs and you understand the process, especially like in recording as well. It's obviously a very different process than playing live. So you need to understand that process, and keep your ego in check, and listen to the producers and the artists, and try to get into their heads to see what they want from you, rather than what you think you should give them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own style and that sort of thing. But when you're being hired to do something for somebody else, another artist, you need to try to get into their head. So when they listen back to what you've played, they would ultimately say, that's awesome. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yep.
Sometimes that doesn't happen. There can be adjustments, but at least you're going down that path, rather than going, yeah, I know what the song goes, and everything noisy, and then they're kind of sitting there going, oh, well, this is a folk act, and you got double bass drums going on and stuff. Just because you can, it doesn't mean that that's where it needs to be, right?
Just because you can does not mean you should.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to know your place and what you're offering to the music. Because ultimately it's for the song, is what you're creating.
Yeah. And I think it's a real skill to be able to like listen to what the artist or the producer is saying and translate that into here's what comes out in my playing, or like in my case, it would be in my singing,
right?
And that kind of thing. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And that's ultimately what's going to keep getting you hired, is because the person who's hiring you, the producer or artist, knows that when they ask you something or they give you a piece of music to listen to, they know you're going to do it well and quickly, because, time's money. Yep. You're spending thousands of dollars in the studio a day just for the room, and never mind people working and stuff. You don't want to sit around and, let's take another 12 takes of this because you haven't gotten it yet. That's just a waste of time and a waste of money. One thing, a mutual friend of ours, Dave Gann, he kind of told me, I've worked with him a lot on various sessions, and he told me one of the reasons that he hires me a lot is because I pick up things quickly, and I can understand where the artist wants, and we can move through things a lot quicker than, some other people. And that's one of his compliments towards me. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah. Again, time is money. So you want to do your best, do it quickly, and get out.
Yeah. It's true. Drumming is a physically demanding instrument.
Correct.
And not to mention that at least until you're playing at the level where you've got like roadies on the crew,
Mm-hmm.
your load in and tear down and all of that is also more physically demanding than anybody else on stage. Typically.
Yeah, it's a job in itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a guy who say, yeah, I got roadies doing my stuff. And like, they work so hard to get your gear ready. Because I understand, when you're starting out in the music industry, you're your own roadie. Lifting drums, carrying them, setting them up, tuning them. It's a process in itself. And then at the end of the show, you're sweaty, you're tired, you just played a very physically demanding show. And now you got to start working again. You got to start tearing down and doing the opposite, lifting gear. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's not, you can't maintain that sort of strength throughout like a tour. If you're doing it by yourself, you're gonna hurt yourself in some way because it's very exhausting. And I've done it before. Sometimes like you're the guy that's loading your stuff or can't make it or is not doing it properly because he's new or whatever. So you have to step in and do your thing. But ultimately, sometimes you hurt yourself, and that's not a good thing, especially being a drummer. If I hurt my hands before a show, I'm screwed, or my feet or whatever. And that happens, setting stuff up, you get pinched or you get cut or whatever. And then you're like, oh no. So it is an important job that a crew, a really good crew, because that's what really ultimately makes the machine is everybody involved. It's not just the band or the artist, it's the entire crew, the managers, the production managers, the TMs, your backline guys, your stage managers. Everybody works so hard to make the show happen. It's not just one person doing one thing or doing it all. It just doesn't work well like that. Yeah. You need everyone doing their part to make the show ultimately work.
So do you have any thoughts around like particular physical considerations, knowing that we're sort of speaking to a younger generation that's starting out a little greener than we might be.
Okay. Yeah.
Physical considerations that factor in specifically for drummers, in terms of either getting started or longevity as a drummer. I mean, you already spoke to having a crew that is helpful, but because it is an instrument that has entirely different level of physical demand than other instruments, I'm just curious if there's
practice.
Stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Practice, and then practice. Seriously, it is a demanding job, and the only way to get better at anything is practice. Specifically with drums, practice will make you build your stamina because you will learn technique that will make your job easier. And doing this, working easier or working smarter is way better than working harder.
Yeah.
I see a lot of drummers really getting out their physicality when they're playing, using a lot of arm movements and leg movements and adjusting their drums at different levels and heights and stuff like that. That's all energy that's being used to work.
Efficient. Hey?
Exactly. But for everybody, it's different. Some people are 6 foot, 2. Some people are 5'4" or whatever. So there's different ways to obviously set up your drums. But ultimately, you want efficiency. You want to make it so you can have the longevity and the stamina to perform. But you also want it to make it efficient so you don't burn out in the middle of a set, because that can happen. Like I teach my students, beginner students, you can always see that, we're playing relatively simple exercises, but they start to get tired pretty quickly because technique hasn't been developed to work smarter and not harder, and until that's overcome, then they start to realize, oh, this is a lot easier if I just do this, and then I can play longer, can play more consistently. But yeah, it's practice. It's practice and trying to figure out how things work best for the individual.
Yeah. I anticipate there's it reminds me when I have students, singers who are coming up and they're starting to perform, and we're starting to talk about what they do in terms of movement on stage while we're singing and how that adds a whole different element to just standing still singing. I say, you need to start practicing your tunes while you are running on a treadmill, or go out in the forest and run if you want to sing out in the forest, or do jumping jacks, or do whatever, some form of cardio while you're singing, because you have to get that coordination happening if you are someone who's going to move. I don't care whether it's like choreographed dance or not, but a lot of singers tend to kind of dance as they move, or as they sing, or move around in that kind of a physical way. And you can't do it for the first time in front of an audience. You have to work that stamina up, because otherwise it ain't going to be there on the day.
Nope. You'll get there and you'll finish your set and you'll be exhausted and you're wondering why. But again, it's rehearsing. It's rehearsing your performances.
Yes.
And making sure that you can get through it from beginning to end. Yeah. It's not just about, I know this song, obviously I wrote it, or I've played it a zillion times. I played these songs with Carly a zillion times too, but before each tour or before each show, I will always rehearse everything from beginning to end. So I know and feel confident enough that I'm not going to look like a fool when I get up on stage, or like lose all my energy and huff and puff by the third song. I need to know that just for my own personal sake, that I can actually physically perform these songs. It's one thing knowing a song, or I know the lyrics, or I know the drum part, or I know this and that. But if you don't go through the motions, it's very different when you get up there and there's thousands of people looking at you, and you haven't hit one note yet and you're already sweating, so again, you got to be prepared.
I also think that it is a thing that is undervalued or not well understood, that just because you've written the song or you've been playing it for however many years, that doesn't mean you don't rehearse the shit out of it. I had Jeff Neal from Streetheart on last year.
Okay.
And he was talking about, Streetheart's been going for a million years. And he's talked about at one point, he was talking about his like everyday routine, what he gets up and he does XYZ. And every day, like whether they are in a touring season or not, every day he gets up and he plays their set start to finish.
Yeah. That's commitment.
Every day. Yeah. And he's been playing those songs, some of them for probably decades. 40 years, Yeah. So you can't tell me that, I know you're not telling me that, but like the general perception being that, oh, I know it.
Yeah. Now. There's never, I know it. Like I've also played Call Me Maybe a zillion times too, but I will always rehearse the song. Yeah. And rehearse it for live purposes. It's not like, I play the song, this is how it goes. But this is how the song goes when we play it live. Yeah. That's what you're rehearsing. You're rehearsing for the performance, not just because this is how the song goes. You're rehearsing your performance. Yeah. And that's what really matters, because, that's great that you know the song, but the thousands of people who are watching you don't know that. Especially if you give them a bad performance, they're like, oh, this guy's not that great, or they didn't rehearse, or wow, what was that? And like most people, if you're not in the music industry, you don't hear or see the technicalities that happen or the mistakes that happen, but ultimately you do feel it, because everybody feels music in one way or another, if you can describe it or not. If it feels weird to you, you're going to just say, I don't know, I don't like that song, or they sucked or something, whatever. But if you can't articulate it in a, the way, or specifically find reasons why the song sucked or the performance sucked, you're just going to feel, you're not going to feel it. You're going to say, oh, I didn't feel anything, and then move on. I'm going to go to the bar or whatever, but those are the people you need to really impress, because they're there to look or to hear and be entertained.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that just by giving your 120% performance, then, you're wasting everybody's time, really. Yeah.
And the reality is, it's your job to give that 120% performance every night.
Well, yeah, people are paying good money to, an entertainment dollar. You can do anything. You can go to a hockey game, you can go to a basketball game, baseball, music venue, karaoke, just drink in the bar. I don't know, whatever you want to do with your dollar. So you need to appreciate the fact that people are paying good money to come see a performance, and you better perform and make it worth their while, so they'll come back for the next time.
Well, and the fact that you've already played 3 shows that week doesn't affect the fact that it's their first show
time,
that year, maybe.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It still needs to be the best show for them.
Correct.
Every show has to be the best show. That's the job that you're there to do when you're the one on the stage. And it's comes with a price tag sort of behind the scenes, because there's a lot that you have to balance out, life on the road and all that, to be able to show up and do that, because that's hard work.
Yep.
To show up and do that. But that's the job.
Yep, that's totally the job. Traveling is 50% of the work for me anyway, because we travel all around the world. And it gets exhausting, regardless if you're in a plane or a bus or different time zones. You're just like, you wake up every day and you're somewhere else, and usually when it's daytime, it's dark. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And then you still have to be mentally prepared to play a show that night, or vice versa, right? So you need to, I guess,
Carpe diem?
No, compartmental. I can't even say the word. Compartmentalize.
There we go. I'm with you.
Certain aspects to get to do your job, really. If you're tired and you're grumpy in the morning, you don't want people to see that. You want to keep that in check, do what you got to do to get over your hump, or, have a coffee, eat your breakfast, and do it by yourself, or whatever your thing is, just to, you don't want to bring your dirt or your problems into your world that you're working with, because everyone's got issues in life. People, have families, people have this, and everyone's different. You don't want to bring your negative energy into that group, because ultimately you're going to affect everybody, because, emotions are contagious. If someone starts yelling or being angry at somebody, everybody feels it. If someone's just moping around and being poopy, everybody feels it. And then you'll feel it on the performance, You don't want any of that shit. You can talk to your friends about, your feelings and stuff like that, if that's how you get through things, but you never want to put yourself in front of everybody that you're working with and put all your baggage onto them just because you feel like you need to. Nah, it's unnecessary. It's not good for anybody, not for yourself, for them, keep it in check.
Agreed. And I think that sometimes, and I believe that the same is true no matter who you are in, like, I think the same is true even if you are the front, facing artist.
Right.
And I think that gets skewed in, we see it in movies, and it's sort of the Hollywood version of that, where the star artist can be sort of a prima donna and run their shit out on the rest of the band, and everybody just has to take it and smile. But I don't think that I don't think that's any more appropriate.
No, it's not. Like, I've worked with artists that would do that, and that's the thing is, keeping your ego in check is a huge thing, but a lot of people can't do that. Fortunately for me, like, Carly is great. There's always issues that arise, but we can always work things out together. There's always a very positive energy in our camp, which is awesome, because negative energy sucks. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It'll just suck the life out of you, and then eventually it'll burn you out. Always try to keep it positive, regardless of what it is. Problems occur, but let's work them out. There's always a solution. Things can be worked out if you have the open mind to do it.
And I think that that's really important too, especially when any sort of like work family, that shit's going to come up and you got to work stuff out. But especially when you are traveling and you're in that close. I mean, if you're living on a bus with
Oh yeah, you're with them 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, like you see them in their sleeping attire or in their underwear, or you see their scraggly hair in the morning, or like it's a marriage. You have to keep the marriage healthy, so to speak.
Yeah. So that those communication patterns and that shit's got to be worked out because stuff is going to come up.
Yeah,
and you got to work through it.
Because again, we're all there for the same reason, to perform.
Yeah.
And if your performance is being, sacrificed, then you're doing something wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. So that was actually just part 1 of our interview. And I would love it if you come back on Thursday to check out the second part of our interview. There's so much more juicy goodness. I can't wait for you to check it out.